On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks got maybe their best win of the year against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it came without Luka Doncic. What was different? And maybe let's ask some hard questions about Luka and the Mavs this season on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
We have cracked.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Subscribe to our free Locked On Mavs newsletter. Keep us the number one newsletter in all of Locked On. We're so close to 1,000 subs. We would love for you to be part of that. It's free. Just check the QR code or the link in the description to subscribe to our newsletter. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You can get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And joining me, as always, co-host, media member, and the Luka Lurker, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
All right, I know y'all did post game already for the OKC game, but the ending of that game almost just made me like walk out of my house. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm gonna just walk around the block if I have to.
It was a lot.
It made me too nervous.
Up by 10 with 1:30 left, and then had a chance to blow it. I was just like, this season. Oh my gosh. Today's episode, we'll talk about that game a little bit. We'll also want to talk about the Mavs' upcoming schedule. The Mavs have a real opportunity coming up in these next 10 games or so, and honestly the games before the NBA Cup break. So I want to break down those and talk about those and the opportunity for the Mavs. And then we want to talk about the West and where the Mavs stand in the West so far, because the Mavs are in 10th place right now, but they're not too far out of getting back into where they want to be. So we'll talk about that and talk about the West and all that. But let's start here, Isaac Harris. We didn't talk about this yesterday. You mentioned slightly than I did the post-game show, and we talked all about the game and just focused on the game itself. I don't even think we really even mentioned Luka Doncic's name that much, but Luka Doncic did not play against the Thunder. The Mavs get one of their best wins of the season. And so I want to talk about that and talk about what was different when the Mavs played without Luka. And so let's just start here. What felt different to you when the Mavericks played without Luka, this version of the Mavericks?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, tough to, it's hard to talk about a little bit because, the team is built around Luka. Like all these pieces have brought in, even the conversations around bringing a Kyrie Irving in. How does he fit alongside Luka Doncic? Kyrie Irving, when he got here, talking about, still says, this is Luka's team. Like this is, Luka's the franchise. Like everything evolves around Luka. So naturally, take Luka's name out of it. When you have whether you like this, word or not, whenever you have a heliocentric type of offense that the Mavericks do, and you take away that guy, there's going to be some pros and cons that come with that. If you're a role player like a PJ Washington or even like a Naji Marshall, and they're like, hey, Luka's not going to be playing tonight, then you're naturally going to be amped up just a little bit more because you're like, hey, we're playing a different style tonight. There's going to be so many more possessions that you're going to run and bust your butt down the floor. And you're not going to just be standing there in the corner watching Luka do his step backs and his moves. And whether he hits it or makes it, you still ran your butt down the floor and just stood there and watched. And then you ran back down the other end and expect to play defense and all of that. So I want to say that first before it sounds like we're just like, oh, dude, like no Luka, look at these guys. Like it did feel like they had a little bit more energy. It did feel like they were a little bit more amped up as a team. For me, watching them, that's what I felt on the defensive end. They still gave up 119 points, but the offense just naturally is going to flow a little bit more whenever you don't have a guy like Luka Doncic out on the floor. Doesn't mean that they don't need Luka and all stuff. You still need Luka Doncic, but they did score 121 points on 97 possessions against the number one team on defense. And you even look at the 3-point shooting in this game, they've went 6 straight games in which they've shot under 33% from 3. And then against OKC, they shot 38, or what they shoot, they shot above 33%. It's the first time they broke this kind of like small little streak they had of 6 straight games under 33%.
And Klay even was 1 of 9, so that's kind of wild.
Yeah, so so they shot the ball better from 3. They put up 121 points on the number 1 defense. Just flowed a little bit more. So they did look different.
Do you feel good? You feel good that you quieted the Luka stands and the Kyrie stands all in one, talking about, hey,
the battle right now between Kyrie stands and Luka stands, it is just
on Twitter, it feels like.
It's incredible.
And in our YouTube comments.
Dude, YouTube comments the other day, I'm like breaking down things about Luka and like being pretty critical of him. It's like, dude, this dude, he's just glazing Luka. What are we doing?
Yeah, I did that the other day too. To me, I agree with you. It did feel different. It felt like they definitely spread the ball out more. Kyrie didn't take his first shot until like 4:30 in the first quarter. He didn't take that many shots in that game, right? And so you felt it, that they were sharing the ball more. The ball flowed a little bit more. I saw guys a little bit more pep in their step. But I think that is one of two things. It could be, you could take it as, oh man, remember that scout that said that, the Mavs teammates breathe a sigh of relief when Luka sits or he doesn't play because they get the ball more and all that. Or maybe the guy that takes 25 shots a game that handles the ball the most because that's the way that the coach drew it up is out. And so it gives an opportunity for everybody else to showcase and to be there. And they have to make up for him being out. And they're playing against a team that they get up for, a team that they just beat in the playoffs last year, a team that PJ Washington, with his, the smile on his face and everything says, I like playing in that gym. I like beating them. There's a bunch of different things. And I kind of think today, if you're in the camp that says, man, that team looks so different without Luka and they're better off, trade Luka. There's like this very small percentage of people that want to trade Luka and want to be done with it. I think it's a ridiculous, very small percentage of the fan base. But if you're in that camp, you can't just take yesterday's game against the Thunder and say, oh, well, they played better without Luka and without it. I think that there were things that were better without Luka. You can't say it was the defense. Mavs at 123 defensive rating against the Thunder. And so you can't really look at that and say, oh, the defense was so much better. It wasn't in that game. I do think the offense had a little bit more flow to it. We've always said that with Kyrie. He has the ball flowing a little bit more, less ISO focused, less, he less like pounding the rock more. And I thought that it was different, but I don't think you can look at that game because one of the issues that the Mavs have had is coming through in the clutch, and they did not come through in the clutch yesterday necessarily. They had some good moments, but then they had some really, really bad moments too. And so you can't just look at it and be like, oh, they're better off without Luka, or they played so much better, so much freer, got it done without Luka. They almost didn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say a different stat. I was looking at some clutch numbers earlier, and they've allowed 71 points on 54 clutch possessions. That's 131 per 100. It's pretty dumb. Like, that's pretty ridiculous. And yeah, that game was like too close there at the end. Listen, I think some, that's going back to what that like scout, said at one time. I think it's fun for players in the regular season. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I would even say, like, if I was a role player on the team and they're like, hey, Luka's going to take the night off, second night back to back. Yeah, I don't think there's any problem with
one game
being excited about it. There's one thing to do that in a random regular season game. There's another thing when you're in a playoff series. And you know what all those guys want in a playoff series? Luka Doncic on your team, because that's gonna increase your odds very, very high of winning. And you saw that in last year's playoffs. So I think it's cool to see those guys and see the team look this way. I mean, you see what else was pretty good last night. You ready? The rebounding. Rebounder was really good last night. But
mattered.
This is not always the style that you're going to play. A small thing too that I like is now that we've seen him play the OKC and we've seen him play Minnesota, two young teams that people already kind of anointed last year. People already had high expectations for, and then they just, beat in the playoffs last year. And I feel like we're kind of like the underdogs for both of those types of series. They beat both of those teams. And you would think that coming into this season, even of the weird Mavs season they've had, that if there's two teams that want to like really beat the Mavericks this season and two teams that are like, man,
Yeah.
all right, if you're going to tell me the Mavs are going to have a weird start to the season, they're probably going to drop the 2 games against the teams that they beat in the playoffs because the other team is just going to have it together more or be hungrier to beat them. And they've beat both of those teams. And there's a small silver lining in that for me, in the sense of like, not silver lining because they won the games, but there's a small extra thing.
No. The wins without Luka don't count, Isaac. They don't count.
Well, it's just a little bit extra for me that they're still beating these teams that they kind of embarrassed a little bit last year. They're still beating them. So
fair, yeah. Definitely fair point. And the Suns probably feel that way, or at least Devin Booker, the only one left of, that feel that way about that. Trying to beat them.
That's true. Yeah.
Coming up, let's get into the opportunity this Mavericks team has. They did get a win without Luka. I don't know how much longer they'll be without him, but the schedule coming up for the Mavericks is pretty favorable. We'll talk about that and the opportunity the Mavericks have coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Prize Picks. Isaac, Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is go to Prize Picks and make your selection of a lineup. You put together a lineup of 2 to 6 different players and the projections on their stats. You just have to pick more or less on those projections. So go check out Prize Picks, see what's available for you. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the best way to get in on the action on sports in over 30 states. Isaac, you live in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I do.
So do I. You can play Prize Picks in Texas. Gotta love that.
Really?
You can also play in California, Florida, Georgia, a bunch of different other places. It's the best way to get real money in sports action. Over 10 million users. So sign up today and you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win your lineup. So the first time you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to pick randomly. Boom, boom, boom. Put down $5. You can win that $50 bonus, whether you win or not. Go check out Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use that code LOCKEDONNBA. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. And Prize Picks, run your game. Prize Picks, use that code LOCKEDONNBA.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Go and check out the QR code. If you're watching this show, go check out the links in the description for different ways that you can subscribe to this show. Check out our Locked On Mavs Insiders, where you get texts straight to your phone from Isaac and I. We'll answer questions. We'll respond to stuff. I'll send you notes all throughout the game, before, during, and after, so you know exactly what's going to happen with your Dallas Mavericks. I send up to the minute injury reports. You know who's going to play and who's not going to play, which is great. Like if you're going to a Mavs game and you don't just want to keep checking the injury report or checking Twitter or anything like that, checking Blue Sky, whatever else you're on, I'll send a text straight to you. Anytime I see a Mavs rumor, you can check that. I'll send you that too. So subscribe to that. We appreciate it. Also helps support the show. That's a great way to have to help Isaac and I out throughout this. All right, Isaac, let's talk about this Mavs schedule coming up, because I think the Mavs have this huge opportunity coming up. They just went through this stretch where it was Phoenix, Denver, Golden State, and then the Thunder, and I thought that was a pretty tough stretch of the schedule. Now they have New Orleans coming up. They're broken. I've listened to Locked On Pelicans. Jake Madison is just having a hard time.
What about Jake reading some of those Locked On ads? I'm like listening to some Locked On pods every now and then. Hi, this is Jake Madison from Locked.
Yeah, if you listen on audio, we have these digitally inserted ads, and Jake from Locked On Pelicans is Jake from Locked On, and he does a State Farm read, like Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, it's great.
I'll pull the curtain back. I pitched that idea to State Farm, and they loved it. They loved it so much that we had a Jake, and that they wanted like a Jake from Locked On.
Look at you.
That was really funny. Our sales guys came back and they were like, "Oh my God, Jake, that's so awesome!" Like
anyway, he wears khakis forever. Locked On Pelicans.
He wears khakis every day. The Mavs' upcoming schedule. The Pelicans have been just decimated by injuries. They're 4-10 right now. They've got that game next. The Nuggets. Jokic just missed a game. Jamal Murray has not been that good. Aaron Gordon has been out. They're kind of dealing with some injuries and some issues right now too. So that game is not as tough. The Heat have not been super great this season. They're 5-7. The Hawks, we know about them. They're 6-8. They have not been that great. That's their next 4 games. Then the Knicks, that one's a little bit tougher, but they have not been as great as everybody thought they were going to be. Then you have Utah, Portland, Memphis, who's been really decimated by injury still, Washington, and Toronto. That's the next upcoming schedule for the Dallas Mavericks. That looks to me like a huge opportunity for the Mavericks to stack up some wins right here.
big time opportunity. We're not saying that they're going to win every game, but we've seen them, just lose the other night in a game they should have won. But it's like this is setting up for the Mavericks to kind of like turn the table a little bit and go on a little mini run. Even like the Denver game coming up, they haven't. It's in Denver, and this is why I actually think they win this game in Denver, because some of their post-game quotes after the last Denver loss, I think it was Kyrie who said, "We've been trying to win in this place for so long." Like they know going into this place that they have lost a lot, and they really want to right the ship with that. And so they knew that last time, and this time I think they actually figured that out. I think that extra motivation will help them a little bit with that. The Pelicans thing, yeah, whatever. I am a little worried about the Hawks. The Hawks have been one of my like guilty pleasures of this season watching, because I love some of their young guys. I love what Dyson Daniels is doing. I love Jalen Johnson. I think he's really good. I would trade Trey so fast and just like build around those young guys and just be like, hey, who wants Trey? All right, who
just package that and Cam Reddish for Luka. What's Cam Reddish up to?
That wasn't. I don't even know he's on the Lakers still, right?
I think he is still on the Lakers. Yeah.
But another thing about the next two games is they're cup games, and those are big time games. Cup games. They're just so much extra motivation with that, and the viewership and the ratings numbers just skyrocket with cup games.
So the NBA says. So the NBA says so far. I do think they have a little bit more juice to them, but the last one the Mavs played, the first one the Mavs played was that Klay return game. That one did have some juice, but I don't think it was just because it was an NBA cup.
It was because of the cup. The NBA trying to force that. I'm not like all against it. I just think it's funny about how much the NBA is trying to force it. And I've been trying to think of an analogy of something when somebody tries to force something that's not as like popular as it is, but they're like really trying to make it happen. And
you know what it feels like?
Uh-oh.
This is sad. It's like trying to give a nickname to yourself. Like if you came in here and we started Locked On Mavs and you were like, I'm the one more thing king. Call me that. Like it wouldn't be as cool.
I didn't say that.
No, that's what I'm saying. If you had come in here and like we did the show and you're like, I always have one more thing, and you're like, okay, cool, man. Like, all right, Isaac, like that's awesome. But the NBA, I do like the tournament style of it. Like at the end, right when they get there. I don't think that the cup games like in the regular season matter as much or have as much. But here we got them coming up now for the Mavs. So I'd like the courts as far as like changing the courts and something different.
You like the courts?
I like that they're doing something different and they pop. I think some of them are bad on purpose so that they get.
Oh, they pop. Like, they definitely pop.
They pop. I think last year, I think some of the courts were bad on purpose. The Pelicans one was insane. The purple and the green.
No, it was so bad. I will say, I will differ with you on the gray court. I think the Mavs court the other night. Mavs court with the white jerseys, the cleanest combo since I've been covering the Mavs.
Definitely clean.
It is so clean, and you can wear any type of shoe, and it like goes.
That's fair. That's fair.
I love that look. I mean, I just sign me up for all of it. I think it was incredible. The Guardian wrote about it, and I just loved it. That was a deep throwback for.
I just don't like a gray court. I just don't. I know that people have different opinions on it, but I don't care for it. I think that this Mavs upcoming stretch is a huge opportunity for them to pick up some wins, to beat some teams. They have taken care of business, except for the Utah game. They have taken care of business against teams that they're better than. I am worried about Luka and his knee and his injuries and all the stuff that he's been dealing with, though. I think that is the key for this next upcoming stretch. Although we did just see that this team can win without Luka, so to me, that's at least a good sign. But I would like to see them like get some wins together and get back on track together, and not like in spite of Luka being out or whoever else being out.
Yeah, and the Heat game, that Hawks game is on a second night of a back-to-back, so those are both away games. And traveling, it's not super far. You're going from Miami to Atlanta, but still, it's a second night of a back-to-back. early tip there on that Monday night. So you don't want to say schedule loss because we've seen what they did in Minnesota earlier in the season, but obviously that Knicks game next week, that next Wednesday game, that's gonna be a lot of fun. It's on national TV, ESPN, Brunson, Cat, and those guys. That will be must see TV.
Also, ESPN getting inside the NBA. I knew it was not going to go away. There's too much. There's too much interest in that for that to go away. I'm glad they kept it.
Yeah, you got to keep that. That's just like you got to have that.
I just hope that they don't like try and force Stephen A in there all the time, right? And it's just like it's Ernie, Kenny, Shaq, Chuck, and Stephen A. Smith. It's like, oh great,
no, it wouldn't work at all.
Here comes Pat McAfee. Like, oh my god.
But this is real talk though. Like this is the time that the Mavericks gotta do this now. Like the West is unforgiving. All right, I get it's earlier in the season and we're the kings of like, dude, don't freak out about a dumb loss here and there. But it's like they got to figure that part out. So, and I think they can on this stretch.
This stretch is the opportunity. I'm not going to say that this season comes down to this stretch. I don't know that this is the key stretch for the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not going to say that, but I think that it is an interesting stretch for the Mavericks, and I think they have a real opportunity. So coming up, let's talk about the rest of the West. Let's talk about where the Mavs stand up and why this is an opportunity for the Mavericks. Talk about that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. Check out FanDuel, see what is available for you. They have all kinds of stuff. They have single NBA games. They have NFL games. It's the #1 sportsbook in America and the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So you've got NFL games, and you can go see what they have. They have player props, like random stuff where you can go look up. Here's we just talked about Trae Young points. Trae Young over under 22.5 points against or tonight when they're playing in the game tonight. So you can do stuff like that on FanDuel. That's pretty fun. Go check out the NBA Cup odds we just talked about. You can go to the winner of West. Was it Mavs and West C? Mavs plus 1,200 to win that group. The Warriors minus 280. So you can check out that. See what's available at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Please gamble responsibly.
Shut it down! Oh, let's go home!
All right, Isaac, you back? Did you fall over earlier?
I tried. I didn't know what happened to my camera. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys.
If you're watching on YouTube or KFAA or wherever you're watching, it looked like Isaac's camera like switched and it looked like he fell over.
It's like, wow, help. I've fallen and I can't get up.
You need one of those little necklaces with the button on it.
Yeah.
You can press it.
Help, Nick.
All right, let's talk about the West. Because you start looking up and down the West, and we're getting into the season now. We're 12, 13 games into the season, 14 games in for the Mavs. The Warriors are the #1 seed, 10-2. The Thunder are 11-3. They're #2 still, even without all the injuries they've dealt with, which, by the way, is a big reason why the Mavs got the win as well. The Rockets, your Rockets, are 10-4. You were on this Rockets team early. You have the Lakers, Suns, the Nuggets are above 500. The Timberwolves got back above 500. Grizzlies back. Kings back. Then the Mavs and Clippers there, both at 500. What stands out to you in the West right now?
Listen, I'm even more proud about my Cavs call. All right.
Your Cavs call was very good.
I mean, I feel like I wasn't high enough. I said Cavs second in the East, and dang, I should have said first.
3.5 up.
But I was really wrong about the Lakers. Lakers have started off really, really good this season.
Yeah.
AD's playing awesome. But this just goes to show you that like you can't keep on digging this hole in the West that the Mavericks are playing around with this stuff and the cost of trying to figure some of these things out. You look at like a Minnesota that's 8-6. You assume that they're going to figure some stuff out. They've struggled a little bit more than what I've thought with that. But yeah, I mean, right now the Mavericks are 10th in the West as a play-in team, but realistically, they're 3 games back from the 3 seed in the West. I saw this thing about Houston the other day where I think it was last week that Dylan Brooks was a plus 97 last week in all the like 4 or 5 games combined. They're playing really good basketball. It shows you how like a little tinker of an injury here or there, like a Memphis losing Ja, this and that. Like it just changes so much, especially in the West. And it's frustrating, right? Like I feel like most of our lives we've looked across the way at the East and been like, really? The East? And it's like, I mean, you look at the struggling teams in the East of like the Bucks and the Sixers and some of these teams that, everybody thought was going to be really good. And we're like, can we just go over to the East? Like, I feel like I heard that when I was I feel like I heard it when I was like 12 years old of like, dude, wish we could just be in the East. I mean, it looks so much easier over there. I mean, imagine all the cakewalks LeBron went through this whole time in his whole career in the East.
We talked about that with the Celtics in the finals last year. The Mavs went through this gauntlet, and then the Celtics go, and the Mavs are limping into the finals, and then the Celtics were like, no, we just walk through, and our toughest task was the Pacers who just play really fast.
Yeah. So, the Warriors are definitely a little surprised to when you really think about it with the Warriors. You're like, all right, Steph, Steve Kerr, Draymond. Draymond looks incredible right now, by the way. Looks in great shape. Better shape than Luka, Draymond? I think so.
At this point,
they're just playing really good basketball. So it just shows you the bar in the West is so much higher right now. And who's the teams that you're going to pass over or pass up over the next few stretches or this next stretch? That's who you got to be targeting right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Denver is right there. If you can beat Denver, then you tie even 1-1 with them. That's an opportunity for sure. The next stretch of their schedule, though, doesn't have a ton of West teams that they're looking at, like winning.
You got a Grizzlies game coming up, right? 2 weeks.
Grizzlies coming up in a couple weeks. You got Denver the next two games. 2 games against the Clippers. I don't know that those two matter too much, but they're both home, and those are opportunities in the West. Other than that, it's Portland, Utah. Those are the other West teams.
I'm glad we could contribute to one of Utah's 3 wins. It's awesome.
Well, you mentioned the Hawks earlier. 2 of the Hawks' losses are to the Wizards. Those are their only wins. One of the weirdest things of the season so far is the Wizards have only 2 wins, and both came against the Hawks.
Listen, the Pelicans have only won 4 games. They're 4-10. Let's not keep this trend going of like, hey, we're going to give all these bottom teams, because then you got a Blazers game coming up too. I think at 2 weekends. Blazers, I could be wrong. I think they've won like 3 games in a row.
Blazers have won 3 games in a row. They are 6-8 all of a sudden. They have that. Blazers have talent. Like the thing about the NBA right now, and if you just look across the West, especially, every team has talent. Larry Markkinen on the Jazz. The Jazz are the worst team, but you just saw what the Jazz can do to the Mavs. The Mavs were basically almost at full strength, and they beat them. And
as long as it's not snowing, the
Blazers
have talent.
It's snowing and keeps Ayton away. Oh my gosh! Remember when the Mavs were going to trade for DeAndre Ayton?
Oh gosh! Out of those top 6 right now in the West, who do you think regresses to the mean?
The Rockets have been really good, but that's a team that I'm looking at where you go, man. I don't know that they can sustain this for a long time. The Warriors also, they're 10-2. They've got some really good wins recently, but they've had a lot of really easy. They've had a pretty easy start to the schedule. Like a lot of their wins: Portland, Utah, New Orleans twice, Washington. That was the beginning of their schedule. That was like 5-6 wins that they just rattle off there against bad teams. And so that one to me is those 2 are a little interesting to me. The Suns right now, without KD for a little while, and they're on a 3-game losing streak. And that one's the one that's interesting. They were at the very top, and now they're 5th or 9-5 at this point. That's a team that could fall out because they deal with injuries all the time.
So already, if you look at the teams above Dallas, Memphis has been missing Ja. We have the Suns missing KD. We have the Thunder missing Chet. Injuries suck. I mean, Luka just missed a game, but I'm still going to say the Lakers. I know they have Bronny in the G League, and Bronny will probably come in and make a big difference on this team. But still, I think that they will. I don't think it's sustainable all season. Prove me wrong. I guess I'll be proven wrong. But yeah,
I think they're just a solid team. They just got I don't think there's anything. We'll see. We'll see who in the West has a tough stretch over the next couple of weeks, and the Mavs have to take advantage of it. They've got to win a bunch of these games, And this is their opportunity right here to move up. They're only 4 back from number 1 in the West. That is not that many games this part of the season. They go on a little, an 8-2 stretch or something like that. A nice stretch of games, winning a bunch of these. Then all of a sudden you're back in and you're back up, right? Then all of a sudden, they'd be 16-9 at that point. We'd feel really good about this team if they were 16-9.
Yeah, heck yeah. Let's do this. Turn it around, Mavs.
This is the time. It's a time to turn around. They got one of their best wins of the season under their belt. They've got, Luka had some time off there, and now the Mavericks have a soft stretch in their schedule. We'll cover every single game of those. We'll have shows all throughout the week. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Check the QR code for more ways to follow us, and check the links in the description if you're listening. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.